Hello, John, are you there?
Hey, James, how's it going? Yes, this is John.
Excellent. So we're going to kind of be doing it CB style. So I'll be talking and then I'll be muting myself and it'll go to you. So it won't be like quick back and forth because of the echo that comes in because you get picked up by the microphone in here.
The echo?
The echo, exactly. So I think I read off your credentials here.
Very impressive.
Already. All the games that you've done. And so let's talk a little bit about Stella and your use of it or misuse of it and, how it helps you out in a day-to-day kind of thing when you're developing games, because that is the topic of the day, is Stella at the Stella-thon.
Yep, no, absolutely. No, Stella is, I'm not even sure when I actually found Stella. I think the first emulator I was using, I think Z26. I may be dating myself here. Back in the early late 1999, 2000 realm. But switch over to Stella probably in like the early 2000s. That's when I started developing. So certainly it's been a tool that, that has been monumental in helping me not only just get demos together, learn how to program to start with, but get these games together and also enjoy other people's games as well. So it's the work that Steven and Tom and I don't know what the guy's real name is, Dirty Harry, and all the people that have worked on Stella, and I owe them certainly a large debt of gratitude for all the hard work they do. So Stella is amazing, and every year it just gets better and better, so the emulation is, they're always striving for perfection, which is, certainly helps not only from a playability standpoint, but certainly from a development standpoint as well. So,
have you been able to like work with them closely? I'm sure you talk back and forth with them while developing your games. If you find something it's like not quite working in Stella but works in on an actual console, because I know with a lot of your games you push the envelope quite far with and especially with ARM development as well. You're on the forefront of developing with ARM, and Stella, when it first started out, I mean, I'm sure it didn't have any ARM. It had like DPC as its basics as far as it went.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't even know when they added DPC support in there, but yeah, as far as collaborating with Steven directly, I've had numerous just one-on-one conversations resolving issues that I've seen, and he's been very, very quick with his turnaround time, and specifically with working with Daryl. Daryl has done a lot of work with Stella as well. He was very helpful with the port of putting in the bus support when I was working on elevator action. I know it's one of those things where he introduced it to me and then I couldn't debug it. So he's very quick with his turnaround time. So it's like I've only had to wait probably a couple of days when I found an issue to have it resolved. So these guys are really on top of it, and they certainly earn all the praise that they get. As far as Galaga is concerned, that's using, that was really using bleeding edge technology, the CDFJ development.
I was going to talk to you about that because they released specifically a new version of Stella to coincide with the Galaga demo release, because it was not able to play Galaga with Stella before that release, only like the beta versions. So you worked in conjunction with them so that everybody would be able to play Stella when the demo came out.
Yep.
Or play Galaga when the demo.
Exactly. Yep. Certainly when we were developing it, TJ and again, does anyone know what Dirty Harry's real name is? Because I feel a little weird saying it.
I've never heard it.
But anyway, we'll just call him DH for short. Yeah, those guys, once I came up with the idea, again, it was a selfish idea for me. The CDFJ is basically, it's just a CDF driver that, Chris, Daryl, and Fred put together. That really carries most of the extra features that are needed for Galaga. The J part was just something I came up with, which I needed. It really doesn't add any functionality that's makes the games any better. It was really just to allow me to free up more ROM by using a different, I don't want to get too technical, but it's basically just allows you to use different jump streams, which is very useful when you want to reuse code.
So was it a coincidence that it was Jump and
yes.
John?
Yeah, I keep saying Jump, but you know, Daryl and the guys say no, it's John. So okay, I'll take that one. So, but yeah, so you know, they were very quick to give me the Windows support of it, and also the actual implementation in the Stella core. Then they came out, I think, with the Linux support, which is very helpful for, I think Mac support, which was, I don't know if it's different, to be honest with you, for Nathan, because he was testing it for me as well and doing all the work with the graphics, and also for Ross Keenum, who did the sounds. He needed a beta build for, so he could hear what it sounded like in the game. So. But anyway, I did work with Steven, as you mentioned, like a couple days before we're going to release. I know, we put out that big reveal on ZeroPage Homebrew in the middle of May, and then people were getting itchy for a demo. So while we were squashing some bugs, Steven reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to be releasing this on Friday or Thursday if you want to release your game." And that's why we decided to release it on that Friday, which I forgot what day it was, but. Anyway, so they've been great. The communication's awesome. The turnaround time, and like I said, without Stella, I have a pretty good idea how it was for the developers back in the '80s, and certainly, being able to develop Galaga, and we had that. It was 6 weeks of development from the time we started, from bare bones, nothing, to what we showed on your show, and certainly having Stella in a rapid development environment is played a huge part in that. So thought that could have been six months, who knows, maybe even longer, because I'm sure at some point you just get frustrated, with that turnaround time between an idea and seeing it implemented. So having that instant satisfaction and being able to see the results certainly speeds up everything. So.
Yeah, and I guess you would have had to have a direct connection from the computer to a cartridge without Stella, and would have to test it on actual hardware every single time, rather than being able to develop it directly on the computer itself through emulation.
Exactly. Actually, my first pass at developing Galaga, all the testing was done. I had to upload it to Harmony to go see my changes. So, but that was just when I was putting together the initial kernels that were basically, and again, I have to thank Stella for this, because I basically just, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I stole the code from Galaxian. I just put the Galaxian bin in there, and I stepped through it and went, that's how they do it. Doing their repositioning the players and changing the copies of each player on the scan line. Obviously, Stella was, without Stella, I would have never been able to figure that out. So that kind of gave me the idea of, I'm going to use this, and I converted it to CDFJ, as it ended up turning out to be. So Stella is not only good for development, it's also very helpful for me to looking at how the pioneers did it. This was what was done in Galaxian was done in 1983. So this was, I think it's pretty amazing what they were able to do back then with the limited development tools they had. But certainly Stella just takes the, lets you peek behind the curtain and see what all the tricks were. So that was the birth of Galaga. So we have to think.
Yeah, it makes sense that you would transition it from Galaxian, because Galaga is a sequel to Galaxian anyway, so it's not even and somebody, and Carl G says in the chat, that's not stealing, that's reverse engineering.
Yes,
correct.
Exactly. That's a nice way to say it, because again, we used I could see how they were doing it, and then certainly we had to expand upon it to get all the features of Galaga in there. But that was I think a lot of people shied away from doing Galaga or thought it was not impossible, but would be very difficult because of all the flicker. But once I went through Galaxian and said, hey, they're doing all the enemies in formation using one sprite. I said, well, then you have another sprite to have everything flying in. Let's see how that's going to look. And as we see, I know there's a lot of debate going on, like Galaga cannot be done without the ARM, but in this particular instance, it's really just Galaxian Plus, in my opinion. I mean, what I am doing, is certainly is helped by the ARM, but what you see on the screen, like how it's rendering, that's just plain old Galaxian. That's all it is, just Galaxian code with a little more features in it. So I'm certainly using the ARM and DPC Plus and having more time in the kernel allows us to put in the bells and whistles. That's why you get like the nice star field now. You couldn't do that before. You also get things like the overlay text. I don't know if people notice, but in Galaga, the entire screen is used for playing. So things are flying over the score, they're flying over your reserve ships. You have the text that things are flying in and under. Certainly that would be impossible without the ARM. So that's the additional bells and whistles. Sorry, I kind of got a little off track there, but anyway, that's kind of what that.
Oh yeah, no problem. And I noticed that you posted in the forums, I think yesterday or today, that you're expected to release it on October 19th at Portland Retro Gaming Expo if everything goes according to plan.
Yep, that is correct. I talked to Al made the decision that Atari Age will be attending. So that's what I was waiting for. So my brother and I have already booked our tickets. So we're going there, and actually we're going to be releasing Wizard of War Arcade there as well. That was originally supposed to be released in the spring, but was delayed due to numerous things. One of them being just Al didn't have the time also to release. He's basically not going to. My understanding is he's not going to be releasing any games until the Portland Game Expo because of the forum upgrade and some other things that held them back. So a lot of games are going to be pushed off to be all released at the same time. So
yeah, so everybody get your wallets ready.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a bunch of games available, I'm sure, on that day. So
a lot of heavy hitters there.
Yeah. So I should probably note that one thing that did come out is that we will not be able to call the game Galaga. No, that's probably going to disappoint some people, but it's going to come out eventually. Al basically, due to some issues that he's having, decided that it wasn't worth the risk. So still trying to decide on a name. It's most likely going to be called Galagon, which was the name of the PC clone that I did back in 1997, which coincidentally I referenced a lot of the code while I was doing this port. So even though it's not going to be called Galaga, it's going to be named after its father. So it's going to be a junior.
That's beautiful. I like that a lot. That's very cool.
Yeah. And it's fine. Like the underlying code, it's all the same. It's just going to have a little different title screen and a different title on the box, but it's going to be the same code, the same game, the same play.
Yep, exactly. We don't, unless I hear otherwise, we don't. That's the only thing I shouldn't say I'm going to change. Nathan will end up changing it. I know he's on this call. So, it was funny. He actually, we were tossing around some names, and we were thinking that he sent me a joke. At least I hope it was a joke. It was the logo of Galagon, but he did it in the font of Gilligan. If anyone remembers Gilligan's Island. So I was like, when I first saw it, I went, that's terrible. What is wrong with him? And then it hit me because he said, sit right back and you'll hear a tale. And I went, wait, that's the font of the Gilligan's Island, marquee. So that's, so hopefully that's not his final decision, but I know he's on your show, so you can ask him directly. So.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's not in that terrible font. I'm not sure if it has a name. I'm sure it's specifically for that show because they didn't really have every font back then was hand done. So
yeah, exactly. It's pretty humorous anyway. May make a good Easter egg, that's for sure. So.
So did you want to get into some of the other stuff that we discussed before? Or do you want to keep it light?
No, this is fine. This is good. So,
yeah. So there was a big discussion in the forums about ARM programming and its impact on 2600 homebrew community. I always love these debates in these small communities. It's quite interesting. But there was people, not too many people, saying that they don't like ARM, but they were discussing what its impact of the game, because when Galaga came out, it realistically blew everyone away in terms of what could be now done in terms of that type of gameplay on the system.
right.
And there were things like it raises the bar of what people's expectations, let's say, of what a 2600 game is, and some people were like, oh, now, not many, like very few dissenters, I would say, like one or two, saying that, maybe people who are developing 2K, 4K games without the ARM processor or any extra chips or RAM will look bad in comparison or something like that. Or why even bother making the games now if we're not going to be making the best of the best games? Of course, we had a massive discussion on the show about that,
Right.
and we were like, no, of course, every game is absolutely different. Every game has different gameplay, and we two of us here are filmmakers, and just because Scorsese releases a film, or you look at any of the masters of film, you don't give up making films because somebody made a great film. It should inspire you to make your own films and put your stuff out there. It's like, oh, look what other people can do, how successful they can make games.
And what is your motivation? Like,
Yeah.
what's your reason for making it? If your reason is to get people to play it, and if the people won't play it because it doesn't have an ARM chip, then that could be the case. But if your motivation is something else, or if people are still interested in it, then it makes that argument.
And my thing is, we're in the era of modern games, so it's not like we don't have things
Yeah.
like... I was like, we could just load up The Witcher 3, and obviously that's going to blow everything out of the water. And I don't think we're part of this community because we're like, oh, I wish we had amazing graphics. I mean...
Yeah, it's
Why is the Atari version of Witcher 3 so low res?
Yeah. I can barely tell that there's two swords. We need to fix this.
So it'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts on this, being the person who put out Galaga.
Can you put
and
his
started
picture on this screen like you were discussing?
I'll do it for next time. I'll do
Okay.
it for next time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks, James. Thanks for saying all that too. I'm glad you brought that up. Well, actually, I knew you were going to bring it up because I talked to you beforehand. So I'll pretend that it's coming out of left field. Oh, okay, James. Let me see.
Spontaneous.
No, yeah, yeah. I would say probably. What's the best way to talk about this? So, well, first and foremost, probably the thing. I was a little taken back by some of the comments, and maybe I shouldn't take it so personal. But being the only guy that's actually doing ARM development, I mean, it's not like this whole vast, collection of people that, this is being directed towards. It's basically directed towards myself and Daryl, whenever Daryl, gets back into developing as well. So that's probably why I took a little personal. And it wasn't like personal, like, oh my God, these guys are upset with me. It's more like the thing that hit me that I probably didn't realize is that, it was turning other people off, and talented developers to make games. And that's certainly nothing I want to be a part of. I don't want to be the guy that, changes the landscape of 2600 development for the worst. And I don't think I am. I'm not trying to blow us out of the water or blow it out of proportion, but just hearing that kind of hit home, and it kind of just left a sour taste in my mouth because, I tried to explain it on a couple of my forum posts where, I've done the 4K thing, I guess that's just the type of developer, I am, and what motivates me. As we know, this is not a full-time job. Champ Games is not this huge corporation that's looking out, out to squash the little guy, with their technology. You know, it's like this is open technology that anyone can use. But even with that said, it's just that's what motivates me to develop. So having these extra tools and being bleeding edge and bus stuffing. You know, it's like Daryl showed me a bus stuffing demo and said, "This is what you can do." You know, I didn't shy away from it and say, "Well, that's cheating. I'm not going to do it." And within a couple of weeks, that's what inspires me. I went, "Okay, I want to learn how to do this. Daryl, can you help me get up and running? Let's get Stella working. I want to be able to test this." You know, and then I started Elevator Action. You know, and that's just what drives me to make these games to begin with. So, I guess, you know, not that it's a wish, but, you know, I just, it would be nice if people could see it from that angle that, you know, when I'm not developing and I'm playing Atari games, this is the God's honest truth. I play Dodge 'em. I play Super Breakout. Those are the games that I love. Those are the ones I grew up on. Those are 2K games with nothing, you know, and just cuts are fun. That's it. You know.
Yeah, it comes back to gameplay at that point. It's like,
yeah,
what,
exactly.
You can make an amazing 2K game that'll blow a CDF game out of the water because people keep coming back to it over and over again. And a good example that I think I gave was Amoeba Jump. It's a 4K game. Its playability is through the roof. Like, I think we played that game more than any other game.
It's in my top 10 homebrews of all time for sure.
Yeah, and so it comes back to gameplay mostly, because it can look as good as you want, it can have the best music, it can have the best graphics, but if it doesn't play well, nobody's gonna come back to it, and it's really comes back to, you know, the ideas in your head and how you implement those ideas through programming, and it doesn't matter if it's you know, a 32, 64, 512K game or a 2K game.
Exactly. And yeah, and the, you know, the ARM is obviously extremely helpful. And, you know, I may just put it in a post before, is that, you know, I have very limited time to this development. It seems like I think people have the impression that I'm working around the clock, you know, 7 days a week, pumping out 4 or 5 games. It's just, you know, when I have a little bit of time, you know, I like to be able to make these games. And when we can all blame Daryl, I guess, because he's the one that introduced all this stuff to me. You know, I remember just always being frustrated and not having enough time and always being stressed out when I was doing assembly development. I think other people can that do that type of development can, I don't know, I guess see my point, because it is very stressful. It's very, very, not that it's difficult. I mean, it's very difficult, and just like an ARM development is very difficult as well. It's just it's on a different.
I was going to bring that up. Some people saying that it's easier. It's so much. It's cheating. It's simple to do these games now with ARM. It's like it's still programming. You have to do every single line of code. It's not like anything's built in. It's not drop-in graphics or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, one of the advantages I have is that, you know, since you do have the ARM, I mean, you have a little bit more, not a little bit more, you have more processing time. So you can just do more. And the way the way I saw it is that it just raised the bar. Like the first DPC plus game I did was Scramble, you know, so you can see what Scramble would have looked like without DPC. It would have been Super Cobra that was released by Parker Brothers. And I'm not putting it down. I'm saying that was the limit. And I think they did a good job considering the limit they had. My limit was much higher. And what we tried to strive for, like Nathan and myself and Ross and Mike, you know, we look at, okay, what's the limit we can hit with this? We're not being lazy at all. If anything, it's more like the pressure's on. You know, if I released Galaga and it, you know, didn't look like the way it did, you know, people could have been disappointed. They'd be like, oh, you got an ARM processor and that's the best you can do? It's like, no, it really sets the bar. And, you know, we are very creative, and what we do is like, we just say, it's just like someone gave you another tool set and said, hey, you can build this house, and now you have a saw, and now you have, you know, an electric gun. And now we expect you to build it faster. You expect you to build it stronger. You expect it to be, you know, all your expectations go up, and then your mind starts, you know, again, part of this is just becomes much more creative for me, because now I can, you know, it just opens up a whole new toolkit of things that we can do. And, coming up with the unique things that we can do now to make Galaga look like the way it does and play the way it does, and putting the overlay text on it, and just all those things. Every little thing that you see in Galaga, Nathan and I and Ross, we sit down, we talked about it, and we came up with a unique way to have it be better than it could have been without the arm. So we're just not using the arm to just be lazy, and it's really. I'll tell you a quick story. Last year at a PRGE, we had Mappy there, and some of the old timers were there, Dave Crane, Dan and Gary Kitchen, and I was showing them Mappy, and it wasn't. They were looking at it with almost like a jealous look in their eyes, but it wasn't a jealous like you're better than me. It was more like, God, I wish we had that, And Dave Crane actually said something along the lines. You could see his mind going like, wow, it's like this is what would have happened, if we'd have stuck with DPC, and we kept going.
Yeah, David Crane is the perfect person to reference in that situation, because he is the person who put the extra chip into Pitfall 2.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the extra graphics we see are based off that. The ARM helps a lot in the sense that, Andrew Davey had actually mentioned this about like Boulder Dash, where having those limited cycles in between frames means, you have to spread a lot of game logic over multiple frames, which could cause the game not to be as smooth. And, but you can still, like I had to do the same thing with Ladybug, where, you have such a limited time, but since the ARM gives you more time, that allows just the game to be a little bit smoother. But, from a graphics standpoint, the DPC enhancement that allows you to update TIA registers much faster is really what makes Galaga look the way it does. And as far as how it sounds, it's using TIA sound. So there's there's nothing, it's basically the sounds that Ross had done for, without using the ARM at all. So anyway, so that's those are my thoughts on that. I just didn't want to be the guy that was, holding people back. And I don't want people, I don't see this as a competitive arena. It's like I love a ton of games that are being released for whether they're ARM or not. So I hope people that can just sit back and just enjoy what we do, and from a development standpoint, if that's not your, if you don't want to get into ARM development, then that's fine. I don't blame you. It's not easy, and it's a different way to think of things. And some people want to develop for the Atari in the way that would have been done in the 80s. I wanted to do that too at one point. And I did do it. Ladybug and Conquest of Mars are just plain 16K games, no extra RAM. Those could have been developed and released as is in the 80s. And, anyway, from my standpoint, having something like the ARM just renewed my interest in development. And, Super Cobra, Mappy, Scramble, Wizard of War. Actually, Wizard of War, I probably didn't need the ARM. That one I probably am being a little lazy with, but but the other ones, like, it's funny. It's funny that Galaga is the one that, people looked at and, oh my God, I can't believe this. Without the ARM, it's impossible. That's the one that's probably the one that you could do the best without the ARM. I would expect people to come out and, burn me at the stake for Scramble and Mappy, because those I see as being almost impossible to do with, that level of quality without the ARM, because of the scrolling and, the multiple changes per line and with colors and things like that. But those are really pushing it. Galaga was quick to do because it really, I'm not trying to say it was simple, but, from the standpoint of developing it with the kernels and stuff like that, it was much easier, infinitely easier than Mappy and Scramble and those other games. So.
Well, you also had the base code for it as well, because you had already developed it. So you had all the logic there beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And the logic was written in C. ARM is written in C. So, certainly I couldn't just copy and paste, but a lot of the data, like for the patterns, like I think Nathan was pretty impressed how fast things are going. But basically, I was actually pretty happy that I was able to take, once we got the base engine going, just to go and take the pattern data, copy it over, and then I looked at to see how I was making things move and copied that over one line at a time and make sure that it would work on the arm. And then I just ran it and it worked the first time. I went, oh, that's a freebie. So it's like the next day I was able, hey, here's the guys flying in, and all the patterns work perfectly. So I don't think that's cheating since it's my own code, but who knows?
And I think there's almost an expectation as the life cycle of a system expands and goes on, that games are going to push the limits further and further all the time. Like if you look at the first games released on the Atari 2600 to the very last games released on it in the early 90s, like it's leaps and bounds ahead. And so it even with modern consoles, you look at the earliest games versus the last games, they get better at programming, they know the system better. Even like if you go into like the NES and SNES, they put in extra RAM on the cartridges. They put extra chips on the cartridges. So I don't really see any argument at all unless they're going to argue against like the Super Nintendo and all the other systems that put extra helper chips, like even Sega 32X, like it was an add-on to the system that gave it more power. Like there's so many examples throughout history of this happening already, and nobody's going to say no, we stop here. This is the limit of this system. We don't want better games. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And I think being an artist, you're supposed to be at the frontier. You're supposed to be like in the weeds hacking at with the machete. And the reality of that is that you're going to get all the bites and you're going to get all the scratches and you're going to get all the arrows thrown at you. But that's the cool thing. And that's what excites me about, the idea of like a new Champ game coming out, is we know that you're going to keep pushing it and keep doing your thing, man. And
awesome.
The fact that people are saying things about it actually means you're totally doing your job. You're totally, because you should be pushing the limits, and that's what's exciting about your work, man, compared to and I really, if I'm just like, when a new Champ game's coming out, I'm there and I'm excited to see how much farther you can push this thing, and I'm excited that you're inspired, and please keep doing your thing.
All right. Thanks, man. Yeah. I guess, I think the only thing, I just hope that people can not be so competitive, I guess. I know we have these, well, actually that's your fault, James, with these Atari awards, so maybe I won't submit my games for consideration, because I'm not out to like, I want to see, it's a shame to hear that, there could be other great games being developed. I mean, one thing that I miss personally is being able to play good games. Like if I'm making them all the time, I've said this before, it's like, took me 10 years to get to play Ladybug again without seeing the code, just enjoy the game. I took 10 years off and finally get to enjoy it, and the same thing with Galaga and stuff like that. It's like every time I'm playing, I'm looking for bugs and like, how did I, blah, blah, blah. It's like, so it's great when I see a game like Aardvark or Chaotic Grill or, the Dungeon Game or, Amoeba Jump, just these games that I can play, like, wow, these guys are awesome. These games are fun. This is my chance to actually enjoy it. So I'm just hoping that people see that, it's their games are just as much appreciated as mine. And, hopefully they take inspiration from what I'm saying and not competitiveness.
Yeah. An additional new good game coming out does not take away from a game that is already out, or a new good game. There is no competition. It's all additive. It just makes things better. It doesn't detract from each other. That's how I see it.
Exactly.
There's room for all kinds of games.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here, and also thank you so much for donating Galaga, the boxed copy, to the auctions. It's doing very, very well, as we can all expect, because it is such an amazing gift you've given us. So thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome, and thanks to you, James, for having this marathon. I know, and of course, thanks to the whole entire Stella team. So, Stella does so much. It's not just for developers. It's for game players. It's for people to, there's so many facets. It's in like portable devices now. It's all over the place. It really gives us the opportunity to experience something that we love on, so many levels. And it's people are going to look back and say, that was one of the main reasons that, we were able to even develop and make half of these games, and, all the enjoyment that we got from them. So this is certainly a worthwhile cause. I'm glad that, something I was able to donate something that that can hopefully bring some money into the people that that are working on this and help with their cause. So thanks, James.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, and thanks for joining us on this stream.
All right.
And, all right. So we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.